This is like the only CitizenCon panel we haven't gone over. Mainly because if you go back to 2019, there's already this talk. It's called Armor Archetypes. And it's all about how armor will be categorized and set up for Star Citizen. Topics will cover how gameplay mechanics would play a role for certain armor types, to how armor are executed from design all the way to in-game implementation. Which isn't the same talk we had at CitizenCon last year, but it's real close. And this is I think part of that frustration of pre 4.0, sort of basically just the whole period of 3.x and how delayed everything got. And I think a large part of that was server meshing, but I think also a large part of that was just the company was so disorganized in making the game. I guess maybe they cared more about Squadron 42. They just left Star Citizen on life support. But the development of Star Citizen felt so disorganized with hindsight, and looking back on it, just you can see a lot of the stuff that they had in mind back then just being reiterated again now. Because it's not really that different from this. It's just them coming back and saying it again for a new audience because they took so long to implement it. And now it's definitely more designed and more detailed because they've had the time to do the actual like coding behind it and the actual design work and engineering to figure out what it needs to work. Whereas this feels more conceptual kind of. But yeah.
Then you've got inventory. Now inventory is, like you said, it's, you know, you've got a physicalized backpack, but it goes more than that. That backpack's going to be modular. You'll be able to attach different sizes of backpack, and they will only go onto different pieces of armor. So you'll have to make meaningful choices. And then you've got life support, which is, you know, how much oxygen can I carry? What's the climate control in this system? What temperature can it survive? And temperature is something I'll be going on again further on. But again, then you...
And we've had some of this. We have temperature armors and stuff like that. But I bet you a lot of people don't know that you need specific armor to survive on Daymar or Aberdeen. So they have to say it in CitizenCon. And they have to introduce it in ways like this, which we're about to watch. Because it's not really in the game yet. We still don't have in-game stats on this stuff. Aye.
You look at, say, for example, the next layer is subcomponents. Now, as I took through the weapons, you look at attachments. It allows you to further specialize or further diversify. That's what subcomponents are going to be. If you want to, you know, put heavy armor on, but you want to add more armor plating, or you want, you know, emission dampeners, or you want further utility and gadgets that we release in the future, you know, that's where subcomponents come in. But really, that's just the armor classes themselves. That's the light.
Yeah, so armor is supposed to be powered. The whole idea of the power system they're putting in with the ships and with weapons, even with the batteries and the multi-tool, like they're starting to introduce batteries and power supplies and stuff. Specific armors will have that too. I'm betting heavy armors like the Antium are going to have stuff like that. Obviously, the Argo suit they've already talked about themselves. They will have batteries and you'll have to keep them powered. So this was the explanation of what armor was back then, and it's still pretty much what they're doing. I mean, all of this is still how it works. There is still reduction of like temperature effects and damage effects based on what you do. I heard somebody say that the armor that you can get in there's like a special Antium armor that you can find in Star Citizen right now, and it has higher stats than all the other armors. So they're getting there. And they even introduced the first heat-sensitive armor during this talk, and then that's been built on over the last few years. But it was a slow introduction, and they never really got around to things like signatures or power, or how much these would really differentiate in terms of stats, which is what they finally got into in 2024. That's what we're about to look at. All right, let's listen to these, what they had to say about Starwear. So this is mainly coming up because they're starting to introduce new specialized armors. We're seeing armors in game. And there is also some level of stats that are starting to make a difference in the armors that you find around the game. So time to get a little bit of an introduction to this.
This onto the concept of specializations. This is about bringing more purpose, more considerations, and more decisions to armor and clothing you wear beyond just looking cool. So, what are they? Specializations are the focus of your current daily adventure. That could be a daring racer, a cargo hauler, or a first responder. Specializations are a series of attributes assigned to each piece of clothing and armor in the verse to allow you to make informed decisions on both how you want to look and how you want to perform. What are they not? Specializations are not assigned classes. There's no magic toggle where suddenly you're forced into a role like a cleric or a wizard or even a pizza delivery person. They also do not limit you. You can still do almost everything in any armor and clothing you want. You just won't do it as well as you could have if you had specialized. Why are these necessary? Well, specializations enhance gameplay depth. They add a level of roleplay and immersion. Specializations can provide a sense of ownership of your playstyle. At its core, SC is driven by choice, with specializations offering a deeper layer of player options. And that's the option to excel, to fool around, to min-max, or give yourself a unique challenge. Specialization allows us as developers to make gameplay experiences that are deeper and more complex. So whether you're a salvager, a bounty hunter, or a medic, there will be specialized suits that will help outperform your peers. So at this point, you may be asking yourself, okay, well, how do I specialize? It starts by determining your playstyle. What do you want to do today? Are you going to be a trader, a smuggler, an assassin? Is there a void in your organization that needs filling? This is a decision you get to make and remake every single time you log in. Or, if you're like me, perhaps several times in a single play session. Once you know what you want to do, it's time to start hunting for the right gear. Specialized items are not intended to be found in any old store. You're going to have to do the legwork.
So this is an interesting bit, too, I think, for people who signed on to this game a long time ago. I think there's a big debate to be had here, and I can see both sides. I'm not going to say one way is better or the other, but there is a very significant debate between game items having the skill or the advantage and the player's actual skill having the advantage. And this also kind of goes towards that conversation again of character skills. But specifically here, I want to have this conversation regarding finding armor and weapons and things in the game versus just being better at the game. Is anybody an absolutionist in this position? Does anybody believe that there should be no stats on any items and it should all be player skill, or that it should be all stats on any item and it should always be balanced out for any player? Or are you guys all just kind of like a different balance somewhere in the middle? Because I feel like I'm kind of smack in the middle. I think I actually lean a little bit more towards being able to find game items that make a difference. I just don't like the idea of a game item giving you such a huge difference that it changes the game. So I'd say I'm a pretty 50-50 kind of person. No, actually, I think I might lean more towards player skill. Yeah, I think I actually lean more to, because I'm just thinking back to like the games that I like and how I like to play. And my number one game, Halo, was all about figuring out how the game works and making the most of that. Melee, grenades, and shooting. You're undecided? Player skill ++, need both, 60-40 for you. A little odd to you with the sim nature in the game that a suit would make a rock explode less or yield more. Well, I certainly hope a suit doesn't do that. In that case, I would hope it's the multi-tool or the tractor beam or the mining tool that you have that does that. Like, I think that these sorts of stats still need to make sense for what they are. You shouldn't pick up a piece of armor and suddenly you can shoot 10% more accurately unless maybe it's like you picked up a special set of arms, right? It's not like you picked up legs that make you shoot better. You picked up arms and they have some level of better power stability that allows you to shoot better. But maybe it only allows you to shoot better if you actually have a power supply in your armor. Otherwise, it's just basic. You like the middle ground monarchy? Toys, you like player skill? The thing is, without this kind of thing, loot really loses a lot of its appeal. And loot's important for a game like this, especially if they want to start selling skins and making people more aware of the looks of their stuff. You hate the idea of a skill tree and leveling up. I'm not talking about a skill tree or leveling up. I'm talking about that's what I'm trying to say. This is not about a skill tree, Penguin. This is about specifically just items having their own stats, which technically already exists in the game. We have item that has different SCU holding capacities. We have items with different combat, with different damage reductions. We have helmets that give you a specific crosshair for shooting. We will probably have exploration helmets that have better scanning capabilities. We will have racing suits that make you black out less. So this isn't just about a progression skill tree. This is about equipment that's actually made to work for the situation you're supposed to wear it in. Kind of the point of saying, hey, this person isn't going into this battle wearing a star kit and a racing undersuit. They're going into this battle wearing actual Castak arms equipped armor that's made for battle. I think the scorched weapon stuff is a good balance. Oh, does the scorched? Yeah, that's right. We have silencers, we have compensators, we have stuff that changes the stats of the weapon. Every gain should need a drawback. I think that's where a lot of the power stuff comes in. Power and weight. Stamina, the way it hurts your stamina, making you have to go and eat more. Not sure what they could give to haulers or salvage to make things better. A hauler can get a better tractor beam with more range. A salvager can get better salvage lasers, more impactful salvage charges. You get a scanner that can tell you more information about the materials you're scanning faster, maybe. You can get armor that gives you more EVA capability so you can be in derelict ships in space for longer. Well, let's listen to more of what they have to say.
You'll have to align with some of those guilds and factions that JJ and Benoit just talked about in the previous presentation. You'll have to explore the galaxy, find hidden stashes, and rare opportunities for better gear.
That is also true. This builds way more rewards into the game. If everything was just based on skins, it would still work, but I think having some slight benefits to the stuff makes it make more sense to come from a specific faction.
Specialized items are meant for those who are willing to put in the work to exceed at your role. And once you've done all that, it's about selecting the right combination of armor and clothing. Yes, I said it. Mixing clothing and armor is built into the very fabric of this new system. Can I get a hell yeah? All right.
Hell yeah, brother.
All right. I know you guys have wanted this for a long time, so yeah, great. And to tell you even more about this new system that we do call Starwear, please welcome to the stage lead character technical artist Armando Lira.
The fact that they called it Starwear. God dang it, CIG.
Oh shit, bro.
Thank you so much, Nick. Hello, everyone. I am so happy to be here presenting for the first time.
Starwear. Stars.
How cool are specializations? We are sure you'll enjoy finding the best combinations for your playstyle. And for that, we had to create a system that gave you all the freedom that you deserve. It's something that I am sure you've all been waiting for so long. Starwear. So if you're...
Like nobody really knows. Like we haven't been waiting for it. We don't know what it is.
Are you tired of choosing between clothing or armor? Yeah.
A lot of people are.
So finally, you'll be able to mix and match. Starwear is fashion that meets...
All right. This is pretty straightforward. They're just going to build the ability for armor and clothing to be included. And you know what's really funny? I don't think I could find it right now because I don't think I know what video it was.
We've also played.
But I feel like maybe. Hold on, let's see.
Coding, but
I think this is what he said he was working on back in 21.
Mainly, I don't have that much time to really do all the coding, but I'm trying to finish up the what we call physical skins. So all our characters in the
It's
game.
not what we call it. We call it Starwear, Chris.
The physics that you determine whether you collide is defined. They're on the skeleton. So the skeleton has physical joint for like the arm and the hand and the head and the legs, but it's the same skeleton and the same sort of physics geometry for every actor in the game, whether you've got heavy, bulky armor on or you're just wearing thin clothes. And actually most games are like this. In fact, a lot of games just have a symbol capsule that defines a character. But all our characters, when you see a helmet come on, or they put the armor on, or they put a jacket or shirt on, that's what's called the skin, which is just geometry that gets mapped to the joints of the skeleton, and then as the joints move around, the geometry deforms with it. The change is to enable the skins to have physics information embedded with them. So when you bring in the armor torso piece of a heavy armor, it actually brings in physics geometry that will define, that basically represents its shape. So as you put different things on, your physics shape and profile can change. And that's really important because that means first of all, better collision and hit detection. You could have a case right now where you have a big bulky helmet on, but the physics geometry is just the head size, and so a bullet could go look like it's hitting the helmet, but it doesn't actually hit the physics geometry. Well, we can change that now so the geometry is the same size as the helmet, and also it makes a big difference for things like physical interactions, like with cloth. So if if I walk through sort of hanging dangly plastic, if I've got my
the plastic
shape,
that can block
out of the way where
anything you shoot out of a gun these days, that plastic is so strong in this game. Like when you're walking through the pyro space stations.
Render meshes, and the same for if I have a cloak on, it will now drape over me properly, because right now if we put a cloak on the back of a character with a normal skeleton and they had say a heavy armor on, the cloak would look like it's going through part of the heavy armor because the actual base skeleton physics geometry is smaller than the heavy skeleton. So
you're saying you're making it more specific?
Yes, it's essentially just making it more accurate. It's allowing for better simulation. It's necessary for
Sounds like Starcloth, Chris. Or is it Starwear? Or as is being said in chat, Star Plastic. So I believe in 2023 we then had a demonstration of Starcloth, which has also been shown off before CitizenCon 2019, I believe.
You can see the cloth collides with the ground. You can see multiple layers of cloth that do not interpenetrate. Cloth gets influenced from wind and has accurate collisions with the player's
Starwear. More like Starwear. Right? Because we haven't gotten it yet.
We now have support for collisions from dynamic objects. You can play football in any outfit.
And they talked, I think, a little bit about here's the capsule stuff that Chris was just talking about in that other one. So eventually his work, I guess, went into this, but when he was talking about it, he's like, yeah, I'm finishing it up. Dog.
So you can see the collision proxies are actually completely hiding the cloth, and they're essentially completely useless. So now notice the difference on the same body represented with tapered capsules. We can now faithfully represent the hips, legs, and arms of the character. An additional benefit of tapered capsules is that the collision detection is significantly faster than with regular capsules. Currently, we're only using them for cloth collision detection, but in the end, we'd like to use them for everything.
Screw capsules.
And using every trick in
so
the
this
optimization.
this was like the engine stuff, right? This is them. We went from Chris talking about his cloth stuff and his layering and his they can be on top of each other, to this being in the engine 2023 and it's working in Squadron, to, okay, now we're trying to get it into things you guys can use. Maybe next CitizenCon it'll be in game. These dance moves, dude. I refuse to believe this is anybody but Chris mocapping. Finishing up the idea.
The possibilities are huge. Like, have you ever wanted to put on a jacket on top of an undersuit? Yes. Yeah. How about an armor on top of a sleeveless shirt? Or even without no shirt at all. Like backpacks on clothing. Yeah. So Starwear allows more customization than ever. But be careful, certain gameplay implications will still be true. You won't be able to go into the vacuum of space without a space-worthy undersuit and helmet. And in certain planets, you'll need a breathable mask or helmet to survive.
All right. Let's skip to the stats
Adding
part.
intent and purpose to all our clothing and armor sets. As designers, we really want the visuals to match the stats that our great character art team have made. So, for example, if a pair of pants look particularly armored, chances are they'll have modest damage mitigation to match. Many armors will be specialized for distinct use cases. Currently, we realize right now bigger is generally better when it comes to FPS armor, and we know that shouldn't always necessarily be the case.
No. Light armor for the win. Let's go. The only bad part about light armor is you can't carry a big backpack.
There will be some armors that won't have EVA thrusters built into the suit, so you lose EVA capability. Some armors won't even be space-worthy. Specializations means getting better at certain things at the cost of attributes and others. This is about compelling you, the player, to make tactical decisions for every situation you may find yourself in. So now let's look at some practical use cases for the Starwear system. Whilst all our armors are becoming specialized, let's take a look at a select few, which I will add are some of my favorites.
All right, I'm going to skip this cinematic. This is the important part. This is the part that really frustrated me, though, in this panel, was the fact that we couldn't even be blessed with what this sort of understanding of stats would even look like in the game. Like, not even concept art for how this might fit into a menu. I know it's not indicative of how long this might take. That really depends on their priorities and whether or not this works out for their development, which I don't think it did, considering they very much had to focus more on playability. But we are talking about this because we do see some of these armors, even the very armors that were showing up in this video here. Where is it? In this video, are in the game. These are the Antium arms. So they're starting to introduce Starwear to some extent with different stats and specializations. There's some branding going on and all that stuff. And with 4.1.1, it looks like it's about to get deeper. But I'm still wondering, when are we going to get a proper representation of these statistics in game? And we know they're working on something for inventory. They're currently working on a new concept for an improved inventory experience, personal inventory. But until we see that, we still don't really know.
Armor, but you're restricting the precision of your control. If you're enclosed like our leader is here, or a flight suit or light armor, you'll be able to fly unrestricted. Now, if we look at an overview, we've cherry-picked 6 generalized stats to give you like a high-level understanding of how various clothing and armors we specialized. This is by no means a comprehensive list of everything we have available to us. It's just a little, yeah. So here you can see the leader has low protection compared to a full suit of armor and no EVA capability, for obvious reasons, but has great movement, low emissions, allowing them to blend into bustling cities and stations. The leader really excels at freedom of movement here. Let's meet our next members.
I don't know if they're still going to do this, but NPCs are also supposed to eventually react to what you're wearing and if it's appropriate. So like if you show up to like a bar for a mission briefing or something and you're wearing heavy armor, don't know if they'll act different or not, but there's supposed to be some level of effect that has on your experience.
Okay.
But
So-
maybe you just like wearing heavy armor, you know? Maybe I just like looking tough all the time, buddy. Or is it the weakest person that wears the heavy armor all the time?
Here we have our pilot. If you remember, back in 3.23, we introduced our first specialized helmet visor, the combat visor. This introduced the dynamic crosshair and all the magazine information on your HUD. This is our pilot visor, which allows the wearer to link with their ship and cast MFDs directly into their visor. This provides the pilot with all the essential data like ship health and shields, so no longer will the pilot need to break concentration during an intense situation to look down at their MFDs.
Y'all catch that? MFD casting is going to be limited to pilot helmets or helmets with pilot functionality. I wonder if they'd also have some kind of advanced targeting and like just better targeting in general for pilot helmets.
Again, like the leader in this situation, there'll be no penalties to flight. Plus, with added G-force resistance, the wearer will be able to get the most from out of their ship. So if we look at the pilot stats, they have fantastic mobility. Like I mentioned, great G-force resistance for when combat takes them to the limit of human endurance. And finally, this suit comes with the best EVA capability in its class for when remaining in your ship is no longer an option. Here's another variant in our flight suit class, the racing flight suit. This is what our driver will be wearing. This suit, unlike the pilot flight suit, has features which are more...
Yeah, we need loadouts, we need lockers, we need to be able to save. I mean, this might be something that really depends on item recovery to be a viable option too.
Streamlined, which allows it to have truly unmatched G-force resistance for the hardest corners on the most challenging of racetracks. It also offers great oxygen capacity and thermal protection for those planets with hostile environments. So as you can see, this flight suit excels at G-force resistance, but it loses its protection and has much weaker EVA capability. Let's meet our next team members. Combat armor is similar to what you're used to, only we're specializing it even more for combat. So what does this mean? We want our wearers of heavy combat armor to feel like walking tanks. The armor should provide fantastic coverage to limit any weak points they may have, and actually have a greater damage mitigation.
Not gonna lie, the guys wearing heavy armor at the Hathor places catch me off guard. Once we return from Pyro where they're all easy, I get back there and I'm like, oh, I gotta shoot you a little bit more, huh?
Mitigation than what players are currently used to. Due to its mass, the armor will also feature the strongest resistance to force reactions, so that's flinch, stagger, and knockdowns, which brings me on to a full suit feature. If the player is wearing a full set of heavy combat armor, they will not be able to be knocked down by small arms fire. Thank you.
So that's not entirely true yet because I knocked down the NPC.
Thank you.
But somebody was asking the other day about FPS scanning and radar. You can see that's a focus with these heavier armors. No EVA mobility though. So you're going to need that dropship. This is like we were talking about earlier. If you got a team of people in heavy armor and you're boarding a ship, it's going to be harder for you to do it without something like a Legionnaire because you'll have to EVA. Luckily, because of the way they've built the game, even if you don't have EVA capabilities here, they are building zero-G push and pull, so you'll be able to grab and hold from the ship and do that, or you can use your multi-tool. But that's the whole of Star Citizen right there. Pick what you want, pick the gameplay you want to do, figure out the things that you need to be able to do it, because they won't always be the same for every person. That's like one of the most key things that I want them to stick to. And that's why a change like this, even though I am very much about player skill, that's why I really like this stuff still. Because this just emphasizes the idea of making choices and then paying for those choices. And I enjoy that. That's good fun. That's why I played RPGs.
Yeah. However, as you can see here, for all that protection, coverage, and stability, we have some major trade-offs. You're going to lose your mobility, stamina will run out much quicker, and your movement speed is severely reduced.
I think we'll mix and match, but not sure how that works, especially with EVA.
The majority of combat armors will also lose built-in EVA thrusters, meaning you're going to have to add additional weight to be wearing an EVA pack. Next up, we have our tracker in the Heavy Hunter armor.
So this is the armor that has been put into the game. This is our Heavy Hunter armor. You can go and find this in the game. It has specific stats. There are multiple variants, and one of those variants actually has better stats than the others. So this might be one of their big test cases. This and the flight suits that they've been doing.
This is another suit in our heavy armor class. However, this one is aimed at less at pure combat and more about hunting its prey. This is all the armor for you bounty hunters out there. The Heavy Hunter armor has the most powerful active scan for hunting their targets. Its scanner outshines all other...
It is confirmed that there is a bit of a glitch right now with the system that allows you to use FPS scan once you take the helmet off and hold it. So, again, probably a test case for them.
In locating infrared and electromagnetic emissions, perfect for locating those targets trying to lay low, whether that be human or creature alike. Whilst it's still classed as heavy armor, it does mix things up, so it'll have slightly faster movement and mobility, but it loses the protection. You'll also be able to store more devices like deployables and throwables. So to compare the stats, whilst not as tough as our combat armor, it does gain an increase in mobility, and while its scanner is the best of the best, the armor is also incredibly noisy and emits powerful emissions. So while you may find your target with these, there's a good chance that they'll know you're coming for them. Next up, let's look at our last additions to the team.
It's probably the kind of one that you'd be using a battery with.
All right. I can tell who the fan favorite is there. Yeah. So we
It's the easiest way to play.
have our sniper who is wearing our light stealth armor. Here is another example of a full suit feature. If the wearer has all pieces equipped, so that's helmet, core, arms, and legs, due to its mass and the suit's material, their missions will run so low that they will be undetectable on radar. With it being light armor, it also has a great level of mobility and traversal speeds, meaning should the wearer be spotted, they can quickly escape or reposition with ease. And remember, with it being light armor, no flight restrictions.
It's a cool helmet.
So with the best stealth and fantastic speed, it's a must for any players looking to assassinate.
Undetectable by active scans. See, I'm wondering what is it? I feel like a lot of this is going to be tied to the core. You'll have some small things going on with your legs and arms, but I really feel like a lot of these benefits are going to be tied to the core and the helmet of whatever armor you're using. Because how can you say undetectable by active scans unless every piece of armor is putting out some kind of signal?
Infiltrate, or in this case, be a sniper. However, the protection provided is minimal. You don't want to be engaging in a full-on firefight in this suit. And just to reiterate, folks, as well, like great specialized armors like this one and all the ones that you've seen today, you're going to have to put the work in to have these at your disposal. And finally, surround our group, we have that one friend.
Oh, God, they said Riz. Is Echo still in the chat? I can't get into it unless Echo's here.
We've all played MMOs, right? We all know that one friend. That friend's me. No. They ignore all the rules and the strategy. They can only play for 30 minutes a week. They might prefer a bit of glint on their sniper scopes. Who knows? Well, here at StarEngine, we also support that friend, so they're on the roster too. So, we have our group. What do you guys think? We fun? All right.
I feel like heavy armor players, who is it that said that? Lurch? Yeah, I feel like heavy armor players are going to be a pain to deal with in this game. Which is good. That's what they're supposed to be. They're tanks. Just like, I don't know. I love the idea of specialization. So that's what we know right now about Starwear. And as I said, really this is becoming a thing because we're seeing these armors come into the game. We're seeing some of the stats that they possess come in with them. We're seeing little glitches that hint at some of the future functionality they might bring in. But ultimately, this just shows that it's becoming a more specialized game. It's becoming a game that depends a little bit more on the choices that you're making and the actual gameplay you want to do. And as long as they can keep guilds coming in and new missions coming in with every patch or every other patch, almost every month this year, I think that by the end of the year, there should be pretty good specialized opportunities for people to play the game.